welcome to your reading for the upcoming full moon in Pisces, which is happening I think around about the 2nd of September. Interesting date actually, if we think about all the twos and then 2020, so the 2nd of the 9th 2020. I think that adds up to 2 plus 9 is 11, which then breaks down to a 2, and then of course we've got 2 plus 2 in 2020 that breaks down to a 4. So that's kind of 6 energy, which is interesting. It's all about relationships and balance, isn't it? So anyway, I'm doing something slightly different for your Pisces full moon reading, and that's because my geomancy cards still aren't back from the printers. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to use these illuminated playing cards. We've got a lovely lunar and a solar deck here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use them to populate the house board, and so I'm going to use I'm going to work with sect, planetary sect, which is an astrological concept which divides the astrological chart, the natal chart, into 2 halves. The bottom half is considered to be the lunar half. This is the realm of the personal, the private, all that kind of thing, the stuff that it's not part of the public domain. And then we're going to use the solar deck for the upper half of the chart, the diurnal half, which is traditionally more public and more socially oriented. And then after that, I'm going to use the Universe Has Your Back deck to pull a lovely advice card. And I'm going to finish off with some trinkets from the Magpie Oracle, which was developed by a friend of mine, Carrie Paris. So let's get into your reading. I'm going to start here with the lunar deck, and then we'll move into the reading. Okay, so what have we got going on here? So it's interesting, you're obviously coming into this this full moon feeling quite upbeat, which is nice to see. This is the Knight of the 9 of Wands, or the Sun, and in your first house, it's lovely. It's feeling quite sunny, optimistic, looking forward to the future, feeling a bit more hopeful maybe than you have in a while, which is lovely. So those are your expectations kind of going in, and I think after that lovely that Neptune-Venus trine that we had, which was quite magical, I think that's sort of understandable. And then look, we've got the King of Cups in the position of Capricorn, so possibly some kind of romance here, maybe someone wants to offer you a commitment. We do have a trine between Mercury in Virgo, so in the same position as the Sun will be at this full moon, with the planets that are currently in Capricorn, which of course for you is 7th house. So it's possible that this energy could bring in a message or a proposal, possibly a romantic proposal of some kind. That's kind of what I'm seeing here. So don't worry too much, because look here, this is very Virgo too, actually. The 9 of Swords, worrying, kind of lying awake at night. Look, the moon is kind of high and your mind is sort of churning, but this is air energy, so it's kind of the mind. This kind of energy can do that potentially if we're not grounded. So I do urge you, if you can, to do something to just ground yourself a little bit, because I think that will help you to use Virgo in a positive way, rather than kind of get stuck over sweating the small stuff, which is a possibility here with this card. So the moon and the sun will be in these 3rd and the 9th houses. So these are the houses of kind of the mind, local travel, immediate environment, and family on one hand, and then foreign travel, foreign connections, the bigger picture, learned kind of an expanded mind or perspective of kind of the bigger picture, the more spiritual dimensions of things. So those are the 2 aspects that are being highlighted for you, and it's nice. We've got the moon in Pisces will be in your 9th house, which is the 2 I think jive quite nicely. This the 9th house used to be called the house of God, So it's very much associated with, you know, getting kind of revelations, downloads, intuitive insights, messages from our guides. And look, we've got the 8 of Wands representing the moon here. So this is a lot of forward movement. It's a lot of progress. You know, I'm kind of feeling like a lot of aha moments, a lot of insights coming through for you with this full moon energy. So I think your intuition is going to be really peaking, and you need to pay attention to what comes through from that side, because on this side there's a tendency to worry. And I think that, as I say, what you need to do is bring in this energy, which can be a little bit ungrounding. So bring it in and then ground it. You know, walking on the earth, you know, going to the beach, walking in nature, all those good things, just to sort of ground this energy a little bit, because otherwise you can get into the space of feeling like, oh my goodness, there's all this stuff coming in. I feel like my brain's going to explode, but I don't know what to do with this, you know, that kind of feeling. So just something to be aware of. And then there are a couple of great aspects happening at this full moon that will play into the energy of the next 2 weeks of that waning moon cycle. So the first is a set of positive trines between the sun and the moon to Uranus and Taurus. So for you, that's kind of 11th house. So this is friends, social groups, and things like social media, where we commune with others in kind of collective ways. So here we've got Uranus is retrograde. Do bear that in mind. And it's interesting that we've got Judgment reversed here. So this is the 10 of Swords in reverse. And so I kind of feel as though maybe you've been feeling that some of your perspective is very different to some of your friends at the moment. Maybe you've been feeling a little bit isolated. Possibly you are on a spiritual path. Maybe you have gone through a dark night of the soul, and you feel as though this has kind of opened up a chasm between you and some of your friends, and so you're kind of mourning. There's a sense of mourning, of not being able to kind of bridge that gap. And I think what Uranus is going to come in and do is just perhaps shift your perspective a little bit. That's what Uranus is very good at doing, especially when we've got a positive aspect. But what it's doing is it's shifting things internally, because it's retrograde. So this you know, tends to work in either in an internal way, or it tends to work in terms of we are looking back at things and we are revisioning the past. We're seeing them from a fresh perspective. That's what Uranus is so good at doing, is giving us that fresh perspective. And you know, given that we've got the moon in Pisces in your 9th house, which is all about the bigger picture, that wider perspective, that kind of wiser, you know, this is sort of like information or kind of data, and this is more about kind of wisdom and spiritual knowledge, that philosophical perspective. And I think that's what you're being asked to kind of apply to the situation, so that you see other people maybe from a, you know, so that it's less about feeling abandoned or, you know, rejected, and more about seeing that you're just not on the same page at the moment, and that sometimes happens, and just being able to sort of you know, feel loving rather than feeling emotionally rejected at the moment. Just to sort of go, I accept that there are differences between us. I still love my pals, even though we don't see eye to eye, and find a way to sort of move through that energy so that you can still be there for each other, but not necessarily agree on everything. I think that's one of the ways that energy could work quite nicely. The other really lovely aspect happening both before, during, and after this full moon is a series of trines between Mercury and Capricorn, which I mentioned at the beginning of the reading. So here in your 7th house, we've got a retrograde Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. And Mercury is, of course, sitting here in your 3rd house of communication, as well as your kind of mental outlook. And I do think that, you know, this is a lovely Earth trine, and Mercury is the planet of intellect. And on top of that, Mercury is exalted in the sign of Virgo, so it works really well in that kind of earth energy. It really asks us to be quite sensible and practical, rather than get into this worry cycle, because very often, you know, when we worry, we're kind of imagining things that will never happen. So it's almost a kind of a mischievous use of imagination. So I think what you're being asked to do here is to really use the imagination in a kind of an elevated way to bring in these intuitive messages, the inspiration from the celestial realms, and then to use it, to apply it practically in your life here in your 7th house in particular. So when it comes to one-to-one relationships, which I think plays into this Uranus here in your 11th. So that's not to say that this King of Cups can't also be about friendships and about emotional maturity, about kind of growth within the context of friendships. But certainly it can also be about a message coming in from somebody that is close to your heart, perhaps wanting dialogue, or as I said, it could be a proposal. So I think that the key thing is not to worry, as I say, and just to sort of see it as an opportunity to learn more about each other and to kind of grow. Yeah, I mean, it is a trine, so I do think that it will be good news. I just feel as though at the moment you're having a little bit of a hard time, Cancer, with this 10 of Wands here in the 2nd house. And I think it has to do mainly with money, but also potentially, self-esteem. Maybe your self-esteem has taken a knock, and I suspect it's because of this 8 of Cups, the moon here in your 10th house of career. So I feel like you've had some kind of setback when it comes to career. Something hasn't worked out, and it's made you a little bit worried about your finances, or it's made you doubt yourself and your abilities. But we've got the 4 of Pentacles here in your 5th house. So I do feel as though potentially what's happened is that you have maybe tried something. Maybe you've tried to sort of go out on your own, or you have you've wanted to sort of take a side hustle and turn it into what you do full time, and you've had a few setbacks financially, that it hasn't necessarily been as lucrative as you hoped, and so that's got you worried about your financial stability, which we know, Cancer, is a big deal for you. And that may be why we've got the Hierophant in reverse here in your 4th house. This is often about being unconventional, and I think that kind of doing anything that's going to threaten your financial security, your sense of financial security, is going to make you feel as though the bottom has dropped out of your world. You're kind of feeling as though, ooh, maybe this is a little bit too out there for me. I'm feeling a little bit exposed potentially, and of course you are the crab with that protective shell, and so you've kind of your doubts have started to creep in, because look, here in the 9th house we've got the Hermit. So you are feeling, you kind of withdrawn a little bit into your shell, literally, as far as work and perhaps everyday schedules and things are concerned. Maybe you've cut back on your grocery bill, what you spend every week on groceries, or that kind of thing. You're trying to sort of tighten your belt a little bit. So it's knocked your confidence, and I kind of feel as though maybe it's not a question of, oh, should I give this up because it's not working? Maybe it's more a question of how do I kind of do this in a way that minimizes risk? So maybe, this is the Justice card, as well as being the 8 of Swords. So it's in your 12th house of Psyche. So maybe in order to sort of get this happiness, I think maybe what you need to do is try to find a way to balance the two things. So, for example, not, just walking out of your job and deciding to do something untested full time. Maybe what you need to do is kind of do something on the side, initially, gradually build it up until such time as you are making enough money to be able to let go of your full-time job, and walk straight into, so that, in other words, you're making the transition smoother. It's less of this kind of, oh my goodness me, this feels a bit too risky for me. It's really raising my anxiety levels. It's making me feel very burdened about money, because that will block your flow. That will block the flow of inspiration, of joy, of intuition. And so, maybe that's more the way to go for you. So that's why we've got the 8 of Cups here, which is often about kind of disappointment, resignation, feeling like you want to walk away from something. But it's also the card of the moon. So this can also be about fear and doubt, and that's what I'm kind of getting from the Nine of Swords here, you know, here in the position of the Sun. So you're trying to be sensible and practical, which is very Virgo, about something that, you know, is quite inspirational and elevating, you know, the Pisces stuff. And it's trying to sort of marry the two and kind of bring them down to earth, so that you ground this inspiration. You want it to kind of, you know, sustain you in the 3D. But interesting, we've got the 8 in here. In your 8th house, we've got the Star card. So this suggests that maybe what you need to do is you need to partner up with somebody. Maybe that's the solution, or ask for advice. Because, you know, 8th house is shared resources. These don't always have to be material. They can sometimes be things like knowledge, skills, expertise, that kind of thing. So maybe you need to consult with somebody who's kind of who's been there, done that, who can give you some tips and just help you to sort of navigate this whole experience emotionally, kind of hold your hand a little bit so that it doesn't feel quite so scary. So those are kind of the main messages that are coming through for you, Cancer. I think let's get a nice oracle card for you, just as a sort of a lovely overall unifying message, some advice from Spirit. I find these cards really very big. I've got tiny hands, so I find it difficult to handle such big cards. Right, so what I'm going to do is divide the pack in half. Let's see. Oh, how wonderful. This is absolutely stunning. Thank you, universe, for helping me see beyond the limits of fear. Thank you for expanding my perceptions so that I can see what is of the highest good. So I think that is a wonderful unifying message for this particular full moon in Pisces. So really open yourself up. Don't close your heart off to the wonderful, inspiring messages coming through with that moon in Pisces. Don't see it as impossible or impractical. You just got to find ways, the how, to actually implement this, you know, in as I say, in the 3D. So let's pull you some trinkets. So first one for that Pisces moon. Interesting. So this is what I would consider to be the crossroads. So this is about you kind of coming to a crossroads, and sort of feeling like you want to go on a new path. And I think that the Pisces new moon is lighting your way. Your intuition and your guides will be talking to you quite a lot, and it's worth listening. It could feel a little bit burdensome at first because maybe you don't understand exactly how to sort of implement whatever comes through, but just, you know, give yourself time. The path will gradually become clear. You just need to have faith. Wonderful. So for the Mercury and the Sun in Virgo, we've got postcard, which is letter. So this in the Lenormand is about communications. It could also be about written contracts. This is 3rd house, so could potentially be about discussions, negotiations, maybe something, you know, to do with that 8th house or that 7th house. Also the you know, the 11th with groups and friends. So definitely communications and messages coming in. Potentially also offers. Okay, and then let's have one for that 7th house for the planets in Capricorn. Wow. So we've got the birds. So in the Lenormand system, the birds are associated with discussions. So yes, I think it's interesting. We've got a lot of communication here between you and one other person. Sometimes it can also be about other people talking about you, which could be this judgment in the reverse in the 11th house. Maybe some friends have been kind of naysaying or casting doubts in your mind, kind of enhancing this, you know, this worry energy. So yes, I think if so, just try to sort of stay in this energy, not allow this to sort of affect you too much, because it can be quite burdensome otherwise. You know, at the end of the day, we have to kind of listen to our own guidance. It's always useful to get advice from others, but then we have to kind of listen to our heart and do what feels true for us, because everybody's truth is going to be different for them. Okay, and then let's have one for Uranus, for that 11th house. Interesting. So this is the Chariot or the Rider. This is about swift movement, messages coming in, things shifting, and that's what I feel Uranus is going to do, is it's going to shift this situation so that, you know, even if it's just a shift in perspective, so that, you know, things, you can see things through fresh eyes and vice versa. So yeah, I think great reading, Cancer. Quite lovely. I hope it's been helpful. If it has resonated, I'd love to hear in the comments, you know, how it's kind of affected you personally. And if you've enjoyed the reading, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button. Thank you so much for all your likes, shares, subscribes and donations. I truly am grateful for your support, and I hope the next 2 weeks are truly wonderful and inspiring and uplifting, and I'll see you again in a fortnight.